Welcome to Russell Jones Speaks, where we explore big issues that matter to parents, grandparents, and kids. We tackle intergenerational issues. Everything that affects parents, grands, and children is on the table. That includes health and fitness, relationships, attitude, family unity, vision, adversity, God, and anything else that might arise. The goal is for you to take away something that you can use in your life immediately. I really want to help improve the lives of families, especially those with 10 to 13-year-old middle schoolers. Let's talk. Go to russelljonespeaks.com to get an amazing gift and then jump on a call with me. But today, my guest is Cathy Helin from Bearcat Coaching, with a background that includes being a star college athlete, basketball coach, entrepreneur, and a mother. Cathy brings a rich tapestry of experiences to her coaching. This diversity allows her to connect with teens on multiple levels, understanding their struggles not just academically or athletically, but also on a personal and family level. Cathy's own path from facing struggles with confidence as a teen and young adult to becoming a beacon of strength and leadership is a testimony to the transformative power of developing a strong mindset. Her personal growth narrative resonates deeply, providing authentic inspiration for teens and student athletes facing similar challenges. So welcome, Cathy.
Awesome, Russell. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited that we connected and that we have an opportunity to work together to impact the lives of many. So I'm thankful for the work that you're doing and just grateful for joining forces.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's start at the beginning. I know you were born at a very young age, but where are you born? Where'd you grow up? Give me something here.
Yeah, I won't give you my age, but I've always loved sports. I grew up in a sports world. My brothers played hockey. They were older than me. I idolized everything they did and wanted to play hockey. And at that time, we didn't have girls hockey. And my dad looked at me and handed me a basketball because that's what he played and said, "I'm tired of sitting in a cold rink. You're going to play basketball." Little did I know that that orange ball would change and save my life in many ways. It has given me relationships, confidence. It's about the only place I had confidence growing up. It taught me discipline and just so many lessons and connections within my life. And basically the reason why I have Bearcat Coaching today is because of that. I'm just thankful for, I had an amazing upbringing. I didn't have parents that put a lot of pressure on me, but I always felt that pressure to do more within myself. And so basketball kind of brought me through it, and then I've always had it in my life. I've coached for over 30 years, well, 20 plus years, I guess, almost 30, creeping on it. And it just remains as a part of my life. But the part that goes with coaching is the impacting of other people's lives. It's not just the game, it's how you reach them through the game. So, yeah.
Awesome. Now, wait, you were the baby of the family, right?
I am the baby of the family. Yeah, my brothers are quite a bit older than me. They're 9 and 10 years older than me. So I kind of grew up as an only child. I was called the spoiled one. She gets whatever she wants. You know, mom and dad were a little bit better off when I was growing up. We were, middle to higher class. But when my brothers were growing up, it was pinch and pennies and that kind of thing. So we grew up in very different dynamics. And so I had the opportunities to do AAU and travel, and play college basketball and that kind of thing. So I am the baby. Yeah, I am the baby.
So your dad, and well, he got to sit in heated seats driving to and from endless basketball games. So
Yeah, yeah.
not the arena though.
No, no hockey arena. I love the hockey arena. I loved playing in there, and I have nieces and nephew that play, and I love watching them. But yeah, his love was basketball, definitely. And we always joke around that he retired when I started playing college basketball, just so he could watch every game. And amazingly, I think they only missed two of my college basketball games, which is crazy to think about. And I think they were at just about every AAU tournament too. So really, really supportive parents.
Yeah, we know parents like that for sure. All right, so okay, sports. All right, so big part of the American landscape. Um, sometimes too big apart. Uh, like your perspective. So, um, sports in and of itself, and like the big picture. We have this concept of competition, beating somebody else, or winning. Beating might
Mhm.
not be the best word, but and and we feel good about it, and we feel bad when we lose. Like how does that work out? Like when you're working with kids to like kind of give them a good perspective of what sports is really all about.
I think we lose focus when it comes to sports. When we lose focus, I mean, we start focusing on keeping up with everybody else. If we don't do this, then we're not going to have the same opportunity. If we don't play every single weekend and we're not involved in every single activity, our kids are going to fall behind. And I think we've lost the whole the purpose of it. And, when I talked about growing up with sports and the lessons it gave me and the relationships, like that truly is the meaning of participating in that. Like I understand there's a select few that are going to go on to play professionally and do it as a career and things like that. And they're very few and far between. But also when you approach it in a way of like just being present in the process instead of chasing end result, it totally takes away when you chase that end result, it takes away from the whole experience and you lose focus of like what it really is about. My husband and I just had this conversation this morning about, we win, we live in such like a win, you have to win. And it's all about winning. And I'll probably get on a tangent about youth sports now that I that I went down that road. But when you make it all about winning and you don't make it about the kids and the process of learning and getting a foundation and understanding what teamwork is about and understanding about building a program and getting through the failures and it's not about you, it's about your team. And that's when we lose sight of what we're really doing. When we put pressure on our kids that they have to make this team, or if you don't do this, then you're not going to get that. Ultimately, they have to make that decision. It has to be an intrinsic motivation within them. And when we lose sight, especially as parents, when we want it more than our kid, that's when the trouble kind of starts and the pressure starts.
Yeah, I think you know, being elderly now. I mean, growing up, in the 1950s and 1960s, sports, you know, it was going down to the field or going down to the park and choosing up sides. There was always, it was the two best kids got to, choose, and they picked the other kids, and ultimately there was the last ones that were picked, and I think that that's all gone because the kids that were the last ones picked, either they were the youngest or they really didn't have the ability to play well. And it was
Hmm.
kind of a reality check for those kids that maybe they should be doing something else if they don't want to, if they still want to participate in the sport, going into school and everything else. And I think when I got back into sports with my kids, and it was like, oh my goodness, everybody's on the team and I'm into participation, but then it was, everybody gets a trophy, everybody's a winner. And then, but then the kids would say, well, yeah, but I didn't, ultimately they're going to say, gee, I didn't really win anything. I got it.
Hmm.
So anyway, the whole system is totally changed from like pure recreation. The older kids in the neighborhood teaching the younger kids in the neighborhood, if the dads were around, because most dads were working. Um, and now it's a whole different thing. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole different animal. And, I don't know. I played AAU. I loved AAU, Russell. Like that, I met the most incredible people. Like we had amazing memories. And I do think the landscape of AAU has changed. There's so many different levels and different teams now that everybody can play it. And to some degree about the almighty dollar. But I was reading a book about athletes' mindsets and things like that, and they did a study on Norwegian athletes. And the crazy thing about that study is in Norway, they don't track. giving out, like keeping score or making championships or anything like that until they're 13 years old. And if you look at their Winter Olympic records and how phenomenal they are in the Winter Olympics, it's kind of a testimony to what they're kind of going after. So, I mean, there's two sides of the coin. I think it's important for kids to learn how to compete and how to lose and get back up and fail and how to win gracefully and those kind of things. But we're just kind of running into this world where things are changing, and like you said, it's not like how you and I grew up. I would go to open gym all the time and play against the boys, and nobody had to push me to be there. It wasn't organized. Yeah, they said the gym was open from this time to this time, but it wasn't like you have to be at this workout and then this workout. And it's just the landscape has changed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, there's really a place for somebody like you, um, to help put families, not just kids, but families, help them put this whole thing into perspective. What's really important, what's really valuable. Um, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I just want to do my playing center rant. So that was your position, am I correct? When you were coming up and playing ball?
Yeah, so in high school, I played center or post, whatever you want to call it. And when I was growing up, the game has changed so much, which I love. I love the different language. I love the higher level. I love the like women are competing at a different level. And when I played in high school, it was like stick your butt in the post. Don't come out of there. You don't need to handle the ball. Just put your back to the basket, post up, and make a move. And I didn't really get, and I played in AAU too. So when I went to college and everybody was significantly taller than I at D2, I had to go to a forward position. And it was a pretty big adjustment for me just because I had to develop a different side of my game. And I think we kind of talked about this before, but it's such a metaphor for life. Like if something that you were doing yesterday isn't working today, you have to make an adjustment. And so many times we get stuck in the, but that's what I've always been good at, and that's what I've always done. And recognizing where your talents are needed in a different area, especially on a team, when you need to develop a different area so you can support your team in that way. When you can set aside your ego and what you potentially are best at. Now, me stepping out of my comfort zone and developing my outside game just opened the door for so many opportunities. And when we start to realize that as human beings, when we step out of our comfort zone every single time, we open the door to different relationships, opportunities, and growth within ourselves.
Yeah. All right. So that makes a lot of sense, but it didn't make sense when I was growing up because I
let
was,
me let me hear your story.
I was the tallest in sixth grade. I was the only sixth grader that made the whatever. The age was like sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, but they only took one sixth grader every year. And the only reason I made it was because I was the tallest one. And like by eighth grade, I was 6'2". And the only coaching per se was, and God bless it was dads, just
Yeah.
volunteering and everything. And this is just in a small town and everything. And I don't think there was a rich basketball tradition. I mean, I read a book by Jerry West. Probably most people don't remember Jerry West, but and the Knicks were a big deal back then. Growing up
Hmm.
across from New York, and um, but we had to like create our own. We were told we were a center. You're not going to handle the ball. You go in the post, like you said. So I said, okay, if that's my assignment, but on my own, I had to develop all right hand, left hand, hooks, under,
Hmm.
upper, fadeaways, everything. No shots, no more than like 8 to 10 feet from the basket. And then high school, freshman year, awesome, dominated, went to a big city, and still was everybody hadn't gone through their growth spurt yet.
Yeah.
And I stopped. Everybody accused me of smoking cigarettes because that was the thing back then. If you smoke cigarettes,
You
it'll stunt
stunted
your
your
growth.
growth, right?
Yeah, so I was like stuck at 6'2", and I mean, I was able to navigate. It was my call that I didn't play college ball, but I just felt so like looking at the game only a couple years later. I just felt so limited in my skill set, never working
Mm.
on, ball handling, just enough to do, get your shot off and everything. I mean, any kind of shooting, all the stuff. And, fast forward, then, when one of my daughters decided to play, and I was like, I went to a shooting clinic, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is, this is amazing. I never had anything like
Hmm.
that. So yeah, it's an interesting. I was joking, yesterday with you a little bit about, assigned a position from birth, because of my stature or whatever. But yeah, it is a metaphor for a lot of things, for sure.
Definitely.
Um,
Yeah. And I think, talking about that, we've seen such a shift in the game too, of we went from, you play your position and that's your role, to we are so focused on skill development, which is great, but then we forget how to take on a role and play as a team too. So there's like two different dynamics there. It becomes very center focused of, not center the position, but center focused of like the individual of, I have all these skills, I need to showcase those skills in a game instead of showcasing what I could do for my team, if that makes sense.
oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, it's a total different game now, and don't want to beleaguer everybody about basketball, but I mean, we never played end to end, sideline to sideline. I mean, unless it was, full court press at the end of a game or something like that. But I mean,
Hmm.
the game now is it's just amazing. The
Hmm.
speed
It
of the
is.
game, the athleticism that kids have developed because of that, it's pretty amazing. All right, so let me talk a little bit about coaches. Um, just one story. You can just explain this or give a little bit deeper understanding. I had a daughter that decided she wanted to play basketball. She was playing little kid sports, like everybody else, but it was around sixth grade where she said, I really want to be a basketball player. And she really
Hmm.
got committed to it and everything else. So she played, like you were talking about, she played school team, she played summer league, AAU, and, every year, all the way through high school. She had a very good high school career. Um, by the time she reached senior year of high school, finished the basketball season, and she just couldn't do basketball anymore. Uh,
Hmm.
and she went out for the track team and threw the
Yeah.
shot put or something like that. Then that kind of gave her that mental break, and then she went on. She played D3 ball and everything in college. But at
Awesome.
the end of her college career, I just remember driving and just just one of those reflective dad daughter moments, and I said, honey, like all the teams you played on, all the coaches that you had over the years, like who are your, who are your favorite coaches? Who would you want to play for again? And she just named one. She couldn't think of any other except one coach that was coached her during AAU. She couldn't name one other coach that she would want to go and play for again. And
Hmm.
every time I think of that story, I get kind of sad. Like all the coaches out there, like why I know it's a tough job, but when the focus is on winning, when it's either the school, they got to win, or it's AAU because parents are playing, everybody's got to pay and they want to win. Um, but like, how do coaches? How should they be navigating this? Because it doesn't seem like they take a holistic approach most of the time.
Yeah. Did your daughter say why she would play for that coach again? Did she ever tell you why?
He just believed in her. He would
Mhm.
he would push her, and but at the end of every practice there was a pat on the back, a high five or something like that that just said, cut, you're doing great, come back again, come back again, come back again. And it was just that at the end of every hard workout, every game, it was just that support. There was just that, it was love. He loved on the
Mhm.
kids. He was a great
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you just nailed it right there. It's the relationships. And I believe for the most part that coaches get into coaching for the right reasons, and sometimes they get into it because they have a kid that plays and somebody needs to step up, or, they love the game. But you only know what you know, right? If you were brought up in a certain environment, you bring that upbringing into your coaching. And so if a coach isn't expanding and understanding, like, the impact that they're having on kids when they're coaching at the youth level or even at the high school and college level, it can have a really big, negative or positive influence on these kids' lives. And when you described your daughter's coach, it's exactly why people remember coaches on the good side, is because those relationships are developed. They feel more as a person than a player. They're cared about, and the lessons behind it. And it's not a, and just like I talked about before, focusing on the process and the lessons instead of the end result. And when you think of these as people and developing people and breaking it down and helping them understand why, I think so many times we expect them to just know the game. And we also don't understand is go ahead.
No, no, I think, but this coach too, something you just said too. This coach, though, I mean, he was a legit coach. I mean, he knew the game. I mean, it wasn't,
Hmm.
he was just going out there giving everybody high fives. I mean, he could teach the game.
Absolutely.
He understood the game, at a high level. But he still had that personal side. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. No, I mean,
Yeah,
and there's a balance. There's a balance between holding kids accountable, but still making them feel like they are loved and cared about, and that they matter. There's outside stuff. I mean, through all my coaching, yes, am I competitive? Absolutely. I want to win more than anybody, but ultimately, it's these kids' lives and future. And I've had conversations with kids on the sides. Their parents are going through divorce. They have an eating disorder. They're struggling with a relationship. They're struggling in school. All these different things come up as a coach, and sometimes we don't realize when we step into that coaching position. I've always said you need like a psychology degree in order to to be a coach, but there's something true about that because you're dealing with, I mean, you're spending a lot of time with these kids and you're with them on the highest moments of their life and some of the lowest moments of their life. And you have to be that solid ground that they can come to. And that sometimes can be a lot of pressure if you let it be pressure instead of a privilege, because ultimately coaching is one of the most utmost privileges that you could have. You get to be around the game that you love. You get to be around kids that love the game and have an ultimate impact on them. They get to come to a safe place if something outside isn't safe, that kind of thing.
yeah. Okay, so all right, so one of the things you do, you still, I don't know if you still coach basketball teams, but I know your business uh, is working with athletes and their families, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I do a couple different things. My business, Bearcat Coaching, I work with individuals one on one and parents, but I also work with sports teams, whether they're in high school, college, or club teams. And so we have a couple different dynamics there. And then I do still coach basketball just because I have daughters at play and I don't want to step down. I want to be a part of that journey too. And when you live in a small town, it's tough to find coaches as well. So I feel like that's kind of what I've been called to do as well. But for Bearcat Coaching, working with teams, I come in and I work with them like a half day session. I'll come in there as a keynote, whatever the team needs. I have a pretty extensive talk with the coach on what they see, things like that. And then we kind of develop the program from there. So I've done a couple different things. I've done, like a 3 hour session. I've done, I have a 3 day retreat coming up in October with a Division II basketball team. And then I have follow up Zoom sessions with these teams as well. And so I've got some pretty cool stories about the successes that we've had with the teams. And it doesn't necessarily always show on the wins and losses, the ticks up there, but the individual wins that are occurring with that. And then on the one-on-one side, working individually with these student athletes, and sometimes I meet with them weekly, sometimes it's biweekly or monthly. Whatever the parents, because the most important thing for me is that the parent and the child are on the same page. And naturally, organically, the relationship between the parent and the child becomes stronger, which is really cool to see. So the things that we discover, and I have parent check-ins monthly too. The things that we discover about their child that maybe they wouldn't have taken the time to find out or didn't realize. And of course, what the child or athlete and I talk about is private, unless it flags something that's they're in danger. But it's a safe place for them to meet. But it also brings a safe place for me to encourage the parents to navigate maybe it this way or give them tools to this way and then give their child tools on how they can navigate certain things.
All right, so okay, so let's just walk me through a sample client. Dad, and I have pick any one of my kids. They'd probably say, "Dad, I wish we had somebody like this in our lives when we were playing because you just gave us a headache." But but we were nah, they wouldn't say that. But let's just say I reach out to you. Do you train people remotely too? Yeah, you just said Zoom. So let's say I reach out to you. I'm in South Carolina. I got a 14-year-old boy that wants to be a basketball star, and I'm kind of lost right now. He's struggling. I'm struggling. Where do I go? Can I come to you?
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing I would do is I'd book a Zoom call with you and have a conversation of some of the things that you're seeing. And then the next step would be to meet with your son together to get you on the same page because I need to have the buy-in from the kid and you at the same time. And so that's important to me. It's not the parent going, "You're going to go see this person," and I've met with people that have been to psychologists and psychiatrists, and I'm not saying that's not a good thing at all. I'm just saying that sometimes it's not a fit. And the difference between myself and a psychologist or psychiatrist is I'm a coach, I'm a mom, I'm an old athlete, so the experience and the wisdom that comes with that, but also it's a conversation about what they love. If your son truly loves basketball and that's what he wants to do, we develop that bond immediately, and then we can have conversations around that, and then everything else that comes from that we start to open up, like the underlying true reason why maybe he doesn't have confidence, or whatever he is potentially challenged with, and then we kind of work from there. So then we set up a cadence of meetings, whether it's weekly or every other week. And we do that for a minimum of 3 months because I want to make sure that we establish that relationship and we can get a good cadence going and get the good. It's tough to meet for 1 month and say, "Okay, you're ready to go." You know what I mean? You really have to dive deep, and sometimes it takes people longer to open up and be open to self development, discover those things about themselves. Everybody's different.
So so you're giving the athlete assignments in between sessions with you, right?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, so we talk about things, but I do give them challenges that are going to challenge their mindset. And so if it's one challenge could be stepping out of your comfort zone. So we're going to list 3 things that we're going to do this week that are going to step out of your comfort zone. They may not be big, and like I said, every kid is different. One thing out of a comfort zone is maybe way different than another kid. Um, and then I also give them tools that I challenge them to use those tools in practices and games, so we can talk about it in our next session to say, okay, what did you notice? Is something different? Is there something that we can adjust or do next time? It's things like that.
Well, okay, so we'll talk. We can tell people about it later. But your book, Champion Your Future, I went through that, and it's very extensive in terms of areas of life that when I was 14 or 15 years old, I didn't even think about. So, do you
Yeah.
have the kids go through that, or is that kind of just comes through you? Or, I don't know. Can you get a kid to sit down and read a book? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, some kids you can't, and I've had all different scenarios, and that's the beauty of it. Like nobody, it's not cookie cutter, And my program isn't cookie cutter. Will I walk them through some of the things in my book? Absolutely. Do I think it's important for kids to build core values? For sure. They need to know who they are. They need to discover those things. So some of those tools, yes. And I've also had situations where kids are hesitant to start meeting because they've had bad past experiences. And the parent has given them that book, and then they've gone to the parent and go, okay, now I'm ready to meet. So everybody's on a different path and how that works. Yeah, and there's a lot of great tools and tips, not only for student athletes. I wrote it for the student athlete. I actually wrote it for the old me. Like, what did I need as a student athlete when I lack confidence? What would I have benefited from reading and picking up? Because I was willing. I was at that bottom in college where I went to the bookstore at the mall and picked out a self-help book. And that was the first self-help book that I ever got. And if that self-help book, Champion Your Future, was on the bookshelf, imagine what difference that would have made in a person like me. And so it's written for the athlete, but I've heard parents say they've gotten more out of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, just checking boxes. We used to have a thing, a personal growth and development wheel, we called it, and you really want to strive for balance in your life because we all like to work with our strengths, but a lot of times we kind of try to bury our weaknesses. But again, that takes away from full development of self. And I think in your book you talk about a lot of those areas that you wouldn't say, well, what's this about? Basketball. I came to you for basketball, and but at the same time, they're actually going through a serious personal growth period when they're working with you.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think it's important too that we stay diversified, meaning we have a wide range of experiences. When we so just observing, this is me just observing. I watch basketball closely. Like I watch, college basketball, a little bit of the WNBA, things like that. And so take Haley Van Lith for example. Have you heard of Haley Van Lith?
Maybe.
Okay,
Wait,
so
she
she
just
plays
changed
for
schools.
Chicago Sky. What's that?
She's a pro now. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
She's a pro now. Yeah. So she started out at Louisville, went to LSU, and then she ended up at TCU. And phenomenal player. But she's done interviews and now coming out about her mental health and how she struggled. And one thing she said in one of the interviews that I was like, that's spot on, is she talked about how she wished she would have had some outside outlets other than basketball. And I think that's so important for people to remember, is that when we get so focused and so specified on a certain thing, and we don't broaden our range on things that can expand our mind and expand our relationships and connections and things like that, it almost buries you. And I work with athletes that are D1 recruits and have aspirations to go pro, but also bringing that balance to their life, like reminding mom and dad that it's okay to say no to a tournament because everybody wants your kid to play in it because they are good. And it's okay to take time as a family to go to the lake and have those grounding moments when you're with each other and be outside. And I read your book too over the weekend, and a lot of it resonated with me as well. Is making sure that you're taking care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit, and doing all the things.
Yeah, yeah. So um, there's things around an athlete that you talk about: environment, relationships, overall health, eating, supplementing, sleep. So that's obviously a lot of those things. The parents have to buy into that. The kids, depending on what age, they might not even know what you're talking about. So, like,
Hmm.
that's. Uh, do you get a lot of resistance from parents if you start addressing those areas? Like, excuse me, coach, just stay in your lane. We just want basketball here, or, or is it, we want to eat our junk food. We don't want to take vitamins, and we like staying up late. We don't want to sleep too much. I mean, how do you work that into the whole thing? I guess the young person has to trust you and believe in you, but
Hmm.
those habits have to be reinforced, probably right by home life.
Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, I feel like I'm in a space where the parents typically get it. If they're seeking out a mindset coach for their athlete, I think they understand the importance of nutrition and sleep, or it's been brought to their attention in some manner. But there's also little things. Like I challenged one of my younger athletes with her cell phone and social media. I said, let's put your phone to bed before you go to bed, because she was bringing it in her room and staying up all night. And so she plugged her phone in the living room, and she told me that her dad goes, "Hey, don't you want your phone?" And like that was a big aha moment for me to understand, like sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. And if you're not consciously working on these habits, if you're not aware of it, and you get sucked into the things that are holding us back, social media, the sugar, hanging around people that don't drive you and lift you up, garbage in, garbage out, the things that you're listening to, all that. Um, you just don't know. And so every person, every family is on a different level. But like again, I said before, I feel fortunate that I'm in a space that a lot of people are aware of those things. There's just minor tweaks that maybe that we can do, and they seem to be very open to it.
Yeah, I mean, the social media thing is it's just off the rails. I just find myself, I just sometimes I'll look at something, and the next thing I look up, it's 20 minutes later, and I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
How did I get here? I mean,
Right.
it's a whole
Right.
different world. It's just insane. But in my
Yeah.
point of view, and what am I missing? What do I need to know? Oh, that's hysterical. I do need to laugh, so it's okay. But yeah. Tell me about, and this is because I'm like so old. Tell me about film sessions, like as when you're coaching a team. I never experienced that. I don't. I guess they had cameras back then, but I don't.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah,
I
you
don't
so I wrote about this in my book, and I'm like, man, I'm aging myself with this because it's changed so much over the years. And I'm a true believer. If you study the game, you understand it more. Like, uh, if you're smarter than the opposing team, you don't have to be as talented or as athletic. You can beat them because you know the game better. But as far as film goes, like when I was in high school, I don't know if we watched any film. We had scouting. No, I don't even know if we had scouting reports. We maybe talked about the other players. And then when I got to college, we started watching film, and it was really awkward for me. I'm like, I have to watch myself. What do you? And I looked at it as more of like, it's about me instead of actually like studying the game. But the funny thing is when we watched film in college, it was still on the video cassette. So if you needed to share film with another team, you had to make a copy of it, put it in a package, and send it out in the mail to the other team. Okay, so that's then. Now we have what we call Huddle. We have Game Changer, all those different apps online. So you can live stream games. You can share the games with other teams. But the really cool thing is when you watch film with your teams, you can break it down to certain moments. So the coach can go in and break film down, point out specifically for a position, assign it to that person. So, like, take football, for example. If you're just looking at your blockers and you just want to focus in on the plays, you can set that up within Huddle and like put arrows on there and call out names of like, here's the adjustment that you need to make on this. Like, it gets so detailed, and that's why it's really really cool. Don't get me wrong, but it can be overwhelming for a young athlete as they're getting into it. So it I think it's a wonderful tool if you want to study the game and be really good at it. And also it's great for scouting your opponent as well.
right. So an upcoming game against Team X, and we get to watch film, and the coach is helping us, telling it, pointing out tendencies, not just for the whole team, but individuals' tendencies too, right? If you're a
Yep.
man-to-man defense team, right? I mean, you're going to know, this person goes to the left or the right more often. They're, where.
Yep. Quick
So
off
I
the
mean,
dribble, shoots a
all
three.
that's
Yep.
it's just like, oh, that's just amazing. Anyway, okay, I'm dating myself. Sorry, but I just
Yeah,
find that.
no, 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 you're good. It's a fun world. It's you could get lost in it for sure, kind of like social media, but it's fun studying other teams.
All right, so within that and within coaching, you talk about uh, having either the teams you're talking to or the individuals, you talk about active listening. So tell us what that's all about. Active listening.
Yeah, so a couple things with active listening. It's actually looking at someone and either responding, repeating, if asking questions if you don't understand it. I've had athletes in the past where the quick answer is, I know, I know, I know. And that tells me I know you're not listening when you already have an answer for something that I'm saying. And that's such a great lesson. And another reason why I love sports is it allows you to point out those certain things. Like, did you actually listen in the timeout? Because when you went on the court and you did what I told you to do in the timeout, you didn't do any of that. So active listening is, and if you don't understand, asking questions, but you have to create an environment where it's okay to ask questions. And it's okay to pull someone aside and say, I don't understand this. Help me understand it more. So, yeah, I think that's a big part of active listening.
That's eye contact too, right? That's got to be a big
Oh,
part.
for sure.
Yeah, because I mean,
Yep.
today, I mean, I've been into some schools in recent years, and uh, it's just tough making eye contact with kids a lot of times, and I always, I had to develop that myself. That didn't come easy for me, but
Hmm.
yeah, but it's good to know that somebody's teaching that because I mean, that's another one of those skills that transcends the game. It goes into your professional business life, whatever you're going to do next. So,
Hmm.
all right. So, what about let's say concentration? That's another topic I pulled out of your book, and just thinking in terms of the state of the world today, we just hear about uh, the inability to focus.
Hmm.
And they attribute everything from vaccines, food dyes to too much sugar. Uh, and everybody, there's labels for a lot of these reasons why they can't concentrate. Do you give like drills or anything that kids can do, activities they can do to uh, better their concentration, or is that just something that kind of comes along with everything else that's going on?
Well, I think you're spot on with concentration, how we lost that because we have so many things pulling our attention. I mean, going back to you're constantly on your phone. I'm doing 14 things when I'm driving somewhere just because I know that's a time that I can get stuff done, whether it's a phone call or listen to a podcast, things like that. But as far as like what kids do, a lot of work that I do with them is breath work. Breath work is so important. And when we take the time to breathe and just be present, it allows to train our bodies to be in the moment and not be distracted. And it takes work. Like the first time I did yoga, I didn't like it. I hated it. I thought I needed to sweat, I needed to listen to loud music, and I needed to get it done. But the older I've gotten, I've realized the importance of actually sitting down and doing breath work, whether it's box breathing, whether it's a 5, 6, 7 count, different things. So that tool alone, like just taking the time to actually do breath work, and there's like YouTube videos out there and stuff like that you can do meditation and breath work, allows people to center themselves and be present. But the other thing I want to talk about with not being able to concentrate is trauma. And I don't know if you want to go down that road of what trauma does to kids and adults even, but having that subconscious mind run of trauma takes away from their concentration. And
Yeah,
what I
trauma.
mean by that, yeah, yeah, and what I mean by that, so I've studied under Dr. Don Wood out of Orlando, Performance Institute, Inspired Performance Institute, and he deals with trauma, and he works with professional athletes and PTSD war people, Olympians, things like that. And when we understand that in our subconscious mind, if we have something running constantly that's in protection mode, because our mind is meant to protect us, it's not out to hurt us. And the biggest thing that he talks about, and what I try to teach kids too, is that there's nothing wrong with your mind. It's just doing what it's naturally supposed to do. It's trying to protect you. So when you have something that happened in the past, and everybody's trauma looks different, when you have something that happened in the past and it's running in your subconscious mind trying to protect you, how do you concentrate on something when you're in school or at practice when you're thinking, well, I just got yelled at. I got yelled at. I'm going to get yelled at. You know what I mean? Like there, or whatever happened in their past. So understanding the importance of breathwork and healing trauma is a big one on being present and being able to focus.
Focus. Yeah. Yeah. I just have a hard time. And again, that's probably why I'm not in that position. You know, we came from, again, from a generation of, suck it up, get the job done.
Hmm.
Uh, everybody's got it tough. You know, your situation's not any worse than anybody else's. And, I understand that there's like real trauma, that is real. But on
Hmm.
the other hand, too, I mean, there's a lot of, I don't want to call it coddling, but I think, um, there's maybe overprotection of kids, and things that are interpreted as that are called trauma are not really trauma. They're
Yeah.
uh, just life, right? I'm probably not saying that well at all, but
No, I totally know where you're going, and I don't disagree. Like we have to teach our kids how to be strong, and but with that comes an environment where they feel safe. So if your kids don't feel safe when they go home, it's really hard for them to go out into public and take on challenges, knowing that when they come home, they're going to get it. Or, mom and dad are going to be angry, or mom and dad are fighting. You know what I mean? So when you have a safe, loving home environment, your kids are more apt to go out and tackle these challenges in the world. And if they have those challenges come up, they have a home that they can come to and walk through them and approach them in a manner that, hey, we're going to grow from this. This isn't going to define us or not. It's not going to hold us back. Does that make sense?
yeah. And I think having somebody like you, um, involved as well, you're like that third party.
Yeah.
So, the kids hearing from their parents, and all of a sudden they hear it, it's backed up by you, or vice versa. That just, that third party is powerful. I use that all the time growing up with kids. I'd check with all kinds of people on any kind of, whether it was sports related, school related, relationship related. I'd always double check, so there was always like a third party that I could refer to. And so the role that you have, with your one-on-one kids especially, that's powerful. All right, so sports training. All right, so this is a big one for me. For a number of years, I treated athletes' injuries. Working with some people, had a clinic up north, and we just kept talking about all the injuries in sports, and I saw in your book you talked about skills, and oh goodness gracious, skill training for your sport, totally on with that. But now, you know, and maybe it's evolved, I don't know, but the way that athletes are put in the weight room, or their parents bring them to a gym, and they're introduced to strength training, I think, in my opinion, my experience, I think that sets kids up for more injuries than they should be having. We just comment on that. I'm a believer in non-specific training, just to become physically more efficient, physically stronger. But if you come to me and say, "Well, this is a basketball weightlifting workout,"
Right.
I would have a problem with that. Uh, you know,
Hmm.
and the other part of it is and maybe comment on this. You've been in the college world and everything else. Uh, Technique and form, uh, you know, just seem to. It's not as important as it should be. It's getting the weight from point A to point B, and
Hmm.
am I lifting as much as the next person? It's even in our own minds. It's a competition. We have to lift more, otherwise we're not getting stronger. When when we really need to know about how it's affecting our nervous system, how our muscles are turning on and turning off efficiently, so that it can
Hmm.
be applied to every part of our life. So just talked a little bit about that, about strength training as it applies to your athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in that world all that much with strength training, and I did it a little bit in the past and trained athletes. I trained myself, and it has changed over the years. And used to do a lot of Olympic lifting, and now looking back, it probably would have served us to work on the overall athlete as far as agility and jumping and plyos and quickness and things like that. And um, yeah, when you don't understand, I totally agree that form is 100%. You need to have form. You need to have the foundation in order to start lifting that way. But there's a process, and I'm not going to speak like I know everything about that process as far as an athletic trainer and what that takes, or strength and conditioning trainer. But just promoting the overall athlete and making sure that you're a well-rounded athlete, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I did. Just a quick story. I'm part of the Association of Old Time Barbell and Strongmen. So it's strength
Yeah.
athletes, men. It says strongmen, but there's strong women in it as well. It's a fraternal group that honors athletes of the past that have achieved great things, whatever. And um, one of the guys, actually the current guy that heads it up, he's the head. Uh, he was a coach for the United States Olympic team, and I went over to see him once in New York. He had a place in Queens, New York, where he was training Olympic athletes. And I went in there, and there was a big, most of the guys that were there and women were there were European. Um, and he was training them in the snatch or the clean and jerk, I forget which. And my daughter was with me. We went over to see about what this Olympic weightlifting was really all about. And we were there talking to him for about an hour. And these guys, and they were jacked. The guys that were there working out, and all they were doing was with a broomstick. They
Hmm.
were practicing form, technique. And finally, I said to him, his name was Artie Dressel. I said, Artie, that's all these guys do. Aren't they bored to tears? He said, well, they can always leave. He said, because he says, if your technique is not correct. And I said, well, how long do these guys do it for? He says, it takes months for a lot of them to
Yeah.
get the technique right with just a broomstick. And
Hmm.
so, and then I reflected on, what goes on in high school weight rooms and in just regular gyms and CrossFit, not to bash CrossFit, but I can because my sister does it. She's hurt. So, but it just seems like it's a very powerful tool, strength training, but it
Hmm.
can also be very, very dangerous. So rant over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
um, Now, what about, and I think we addressed it kind of before, but what about like peaking too early for kids? I think you referred to that, where, kids get too specialized too soon. They don't have diverse experiences.
Hmm.
Maybe there's the superstar of their eighth grade team and then they disappear.
Hmm.
Is that a mental thing? Is that like what, I mean, or they just matured early and they were stars for a while and then they disappeared. They just get burnt out. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think there's a few different scenarios. You have the kids that don't grow until later. Like my husband grew 2 to 3 inches after high school. You just have those boys. Like he played football until his junior year of high school, and then his senior year he was sick of getting beat up. I mean, you're 6'1" and 140 pounds, 50 pounds. So it doesn't fit. But then you have those kids that peak really early, and the kids that peak really early are used to winning and they're used to having that success. And then when everybody starts to grow up around them and develop more skills and get better and stronger, they're not having that success and they may not like that. So you have that. And then there's burnout too, kids that are peaking early and standouts in this youth age. And like we were talking about before, getting all these tournaments and all these games in and go 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 go, and pretty soon they're like, yeah, I'm done with it. So I never want to count a kid out, and that's like in youth sports. I'm such a proponent of always giving a kid a chance, because you don't know when that spark will hit. You don't know when that growth spurt might hit, or they'll start to develop these different skills, or you can find a place in a program for their specific skills, whether they have speed or strength or what that looks like. Um, so I think it's important that we see a lot of drop off in middle school with sports. And I don't know if you've noticed this too, but they hit that junior high and we see a lot of people just quit after youth sports instead of stick with it. And I feel like we need kids to stay involved. We need them to stick with stuff, to feel a part of something. And I get it if it's not their thing, but when they quit because they don't feel like they fit in, or that it's, it's not this equal play thing, and it's getting more competitive, it's finding the what what do they bring, and really focusing on that, and developing that, and keeping them a part of something. So kind of got off a tangent there, but I
The
really
physical
believe.
side, I mean, there's just not enough physical in this world today for kids growing up. So yeah, to keep them engaged in some sort of physical activity
Yeah,
is a good
yeah,
thing. And if it's a good thing with a good coach and with good teammates, there's also great lessons that come from that. But
yeah, for sure.
so okay, so now I use the word good like 10 times because that's what I want to ask you about. Because this is okay. I need a mindset. Uh, uh, I need help with my mindset. So I'm reading your book, and the word good comes up. Can you
Yeah.
just give us what's good about
Oh,
what's so good
I
about
love
what
this
happened?
term. So if you've ever listened to Jocko, he's got some amazing, podcasts and motivational stuff. He's written the book Extreme Ownership, and a little bit background about me is my husband and I own a service business. We do plumbing and heating and stuff like that, and we've grown this business together. And it's not always been rainbows and butterflies, right? When you're growing something, life isn't all about that. And one thing that has helped us, and we learned this from Jocko, is that we look at each other when something goes bad. We look at each other and we say, "Good. What's going to come out of it? What can we do better? What did we learn from it? What what lesson, and how is this going to make us stronger?" And it's kind of become a like kind of funny, but not really. It like motivates us when something goes awry. We look at each other and we go, "Good. Now what? How are we going to
Right, so
respond?"
you're controlling what comes out of your mouth, right? Because
Yeah.
what's that's important because that's programming your own subconscious mind. And yeah, so instead of me like cursing out Murphy because of his law that something went wrong, I'm just going to
Yeah.
say good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
Because ultimately, like, especially when you have employees and things like that, like, you have to take responsibility. I'm responsible. Like, if something happens, like my kids do something silly, like, okay, what do I need to teach them? What haven't we learned so this doesn't happen again and again? So it's just referring back to good, and it changes your state to go, all right, now what are you going to do about it? How are we going to learn from this and move on?
cool, good stuff. Okay, so, excuse me. So as a woman coaching teens, uh, is it easier to coach girls or boys, or each one brings its own issues?
Yeah, everybody's individualized. I don't like for me, I grew up with brothers. I work in the trades, or I have worked in the trades, so nothing gets a little more manly than that, right? And then I worked in athletics too. So I was surrounded by men when I was working in athletic departments and things like that. So I love to hunt and fish, and don't have an issue connecting. And that's the whole thing. It's just building trust, connecting, having conversations, and it's all about how you make them feel. So do they feel safe? Do they feel heard? Do they feel that they can improve? All those different things. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's a difference between boys and girls, males and females. It's just more about the connection.
The connection. Yeah. All right. And last thing I want to talk about too, dreams and fantasies. Is there any point where you're working with somebody where it's really time for a reality check? they're talking about
Mhm.
being a D1 athlete, and you're not convinced that they're going to be a varsity athlete in high school. Um, it's like I find that, and I put it in my first book and whatever, where we would talk about that, where it's like, okay, you get a workload, okay, I'm gonna be a D1 athlete. Okay, what are the steps to get there? And but then all of a sudden, well, I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll get to it next week. I'm gonna work on that. And but if you've been working with somebody like that, I mean, is there ever a point where you have to say, hey, look, if you don't put the work in, it's a nice dream to have, but it sounds like it's more like a fantasy for you. Do you ever get to that place
Yeah,
with kids?
I think that's what my clients appreciate about me is my honesty and ability to give hurtful truths instead of comforting lies. One of my mentors had given me that quote, Mike A. But I think it's important. Would you and asking them, hey, would you rather hear comforting lies than hurtful truth, or vice versa? You know what I mean? And most people want the honest truth. They don't want to be lied to. So it's being straightforward with them, but also breaking it down. Okay, if this is in fact your goal, your target, let's break it down and reverse engineer it. And here's what the habits of this type of athlete needs to have. Here's what you need to do. Are you willing to do that? Is that something that you can hold yourself accountable and have discipline for that? And the other thing, I've learned within the last couple of months too is look at your 10-year, 5-year plan. Look at your 5-year plan. If your 5-year plan is, say, you're in high school and you want to play college ball, and you try to accomplish that in 6 months, and you work towards that. So you take on the habits and you take on all of the things that you need to do to be at that level, and you don't accomplish that, that's okay. But look at the progress you've made. And if that progress is going to get you closer to that goal, then we know, okay, now we have a starting point. But if you're not willing to put in that work, if you're not willing to sacrifice and do those things, you have to be honest with yourself. And if this is something that is for you.
Yeah, good, good stuff. Uh, so how can folks get in touch with you for your services or get your book? Give us a little
Yeah.
bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to bearcatmindset.com. And you can book a call with me there, whether you're a parent, a coach, or athlete. And we can have a conversation to see if it's a fit to work one on one or with your team, things like that. I do most online sessions, but I also have an office here in Minnesota where I'm located. So I do one on one in person as well. And then my book you can find on Amazon. It's Champion Your Future. You can buy it right there on Amazon. And yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for your support. I love that, Russell.
Hey, well, that's a wrap. I hope everyone enjoyed today's episode and you got some takeaways that you can use. More information about Cathy Helin and Bearcat Coaching pages and website will be in the notes. Please share this with your friends and don't forget all my stuff at russelljonespeaks.com. If you're a parent or grandparent or mentor to a 10 to 15-year-old, check out our 60-day transformational interactive video series, Top Secrets of Success for Kids and Parents. It's amazing. It will equip and encourage parents and kids. Yes, russelljonespeaks.com. Get on our email list, jump on a call with me. And in the words of the inimitable Hulk Hogan, say your prayers, take your vitamins, and you'll never go wrong. Then you can all go and make it a great day. Bye for now.
Russell, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate all the work that you do with kids and the mission that you're on. It's awesome. Thank you.